Return, O Virgin Daughter of Israel, to these your highways by which you went. Welcome to Reunion Roadmap, a place to discover the people and communities along the highway of restoration for Israel's house of Joseph. Reunion Roadmap is a B'nai Yosef North America production. Be our guest for the next hour as we meet the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.
Well, welcome to another edition of Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. This is Al McCarn, the Executive Director of BINA, as we affectionately call this family. And along with us, my brother and our Communications Director, Tefania Pappas. Tefania, how are you doing in this week of Hanukkah?
Staying warm, because right now we're waiting for a HVAC person to come by and get our heat going here. Yes, staying warm, but also keeping warm in my heart because I have the light of the world living inside of me.
Well, hallelujah. And as we are recording this, it is the week of Hanukkah, and we are looking forward to lighting the candles again tonight. Not surprisingly, we have Hanukkah as a theme for this show. So you'll hear the music of Miriam Houts and Gregory Brown singing about this feast of dedication, and our elders Barry Phillips and David Jones also have a special midrash which talks about the theme of dedication. But before that, we have a visit with a brother from Israel who is dedicated to serving a special part of the body of our Messiah. Tefania, tell us about who our guest is today.
His name is Mordechai, and he helps with fundraising for Ebenezer home in Haifa, Israel. And I met him while over there, while we were last there in Israel during Sukkot. And he came to my home. He got in touch with me. He said he was going to be in the States, and we got hooked up. And as a result, we have the interview here.
Now, Ebenezer home is something special and something unique in Israel. Could you explain what that is?
Yes, it's a senior citizens home dedicated to those who believe in Yeshua as the Messiah. They're in Israel, so it's the only one that exists based upon people with that belief.
Now, that's what makes it unique. Of course,
Yeah.
It's not the only facility for the aged in Israel, but
Exactly.
It is the only one that serves the needs of those who are followers of Yeshua. And as you'll hear from Brother Mordechai, it doesn't matter what background these folks have come from. That they may have been born into Jewish or Christian or Muslim families, but somewhere along the way, they have attached themselves to Yeshua as the living Messiah. And that has caused a little trouble in that there's no other place for the aged believers in Yeshua to go in Israel.
Yes.
Now, I think of the elderly here in the United States, and there are several Christian denominations and ministries that operate retirement facilities. There are also such facilities operated by Jewish ministries and organizations. In Israel, it's a little bit different. And that's another thing that I was fascinated to learn from Mordechai about how the state is involved in caring for the people, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But Tefania, we don't think about Israel being a socialist country. It is, though, isn't it?
Yes, true. It is.
It would be instructive, folks, if you have not looked into the founding of the State of Israel, to go back and see who established it. There is a reason that it does embody socialist principles, because that's where many of the Jews who established the state came from. Their background was in Eastern Europe, where socialism was quite popular.
Yeah. And the complete system as well, too.
Yes. So I'm not saying this as a judgment, either good or bad, but the fact remains the state of Israel does seek to take care of its people from cradle to grave. And that's why you'll hear Mordechai, as he's talking with us this week and next week, of where the state is involved in regulating what Ebenezer Home does. But within those guidelines, I think you'll also find it's quite a ministry.
Yes.
Yeah, quite encouraging, quite edifying, I believe, to hear what God is doing through some very dedicated people who are taking care of some very special saints. So with that introduction, why don't we go on to Ellijay, Georgia, because that's where, Stefania, you interviewed Mordechai. And let's listen to Brother Mordechai bringing us a message from Haifa, Israel.
Hello, this is Stefania Pappas, Communications Director for Maneos of North America, and welcome to the interview portion of Reunion Roadmap. And with me is Mordechai from Israel, and he's going to be sharing with us about Ebenezer Home, which is in the Haifa area.
Well, shalom, Stefania, and shalom to everyone who is listening. It's a honor for me to be here and meet you. And also to know that many of you are listening. I would say listening to a voice out of Israel, out of Haifa. And I will just introduce a home existing in Haifa called Ebenezer Senior Home, which is located in Haifa. It's downtown Haifa. If you're standing on the Carmel looking down, you would see it. You see the ocean. It's a beautiful area. It is located in the German colony. The colony is about 180 years old nice buildings. But when we look at the home, on one side you look to a stone building and concrete with windows just like a regular building. But if you go inside, you will find a completely different world. The home is located in a mixed area of neighborhood of Arabs, Jews, and some Armenians that are left over, a remnant of the Armenian slaves that the Turks had and that were allowed to stay in Israel. In the home itself lives a population of Jewish believers, of Arabic believers, of foreign immigrants out of the foreign USSR, some of other countries around the world, Jewish immigrants. And what unites them is that they all believe in Yeshua. And for them, Yeshua is their savior. This is a very special place because not only the workers, and not only the residents, but I say also the workers are in the community of believing in Yeshua. And that is a really united spirit and knowledge when you enter that home. Now, many people, what I heard of, when they enter the home, they say, hey, what is this? This is different than another place. And there's no sign of, no religious signs inside, maybe a scripture verse quoted out of the New Testament, maybe Old Testament, you find some scriptures, but they enter the home and right away say, I feel something different. And this is the greatest moment that you can have as someone who believes in Yeshua, to hear that. That's a great witness, because then it's a moment to say, well, yes, it might be different, but what do you mean? And then they start thinking. And the task of, I think, how those elderly describe it many times is, when the people ask, then I can answer the questions. It is not always easy to witness about your faith. It's wanted, it's not wanted, and sometimes it's like, just leave me, don't talk about religious issues, I don't believe in God even. But anyone entering the home, if it's a visitor, if it's relatives, if it's supplying personnel, they always say that. At the home, there's about 30 people right now living there. The average age of the elderly is 86. So you can imagine if that's the average, the eldest is, I think, is now 67. You are allowed to enter the home after retirement. So you have to be at least 67, let's say that. Many of them entering the home are 78, 80. And that just is showing their health. People are living on their own until they cannot do anymore their grocery on their own, their laundry, they need help. And for the believing community in Israel, that home is more or less a refuge, because it is not requesting a full price like other homes. Okay, there's a full price to be paid. It's around 8,000 shekels, but many of them that are coming out of the believers community in Yeshua, they cannot afford that. Many of them are from a lower social economical standard, and they need help. So what is done, they are accepted at home. Of course, they have to prove that they are faithful believers, and that is usually no problem because they belong to communities. And then we do a financial check and we see what they can pay. They pay 80% from what they have as income. We have a low social security in Israel, so everyone receives that. They take 80% from that. The rest is just the pocket money for them if they need something extra. And the home takes care of the rest. Now, it's quite a burden for a home like that to run and have running costs for so many people that cannot afford a living there. From out Israel, from around the world, people are supporting the home. They are looking for the needs that the people can stay there. One of the things we have at the home, the people living there, they need also a surrounding of believers around them. If they would go to a senior home, just a secular senior home, that is not their place. They will, you can say, almost perish, because who is going to visit them? And I say this because many of them have almost no relatives. We can see that among the Holocaust survivors still living in a home. There are right now 6. About 3 weeks ago, one of the Holocaust survivors died. Many of those that came to live in the home are either abandoned by their families, or their families do not want to have anything to do with them anymore after that they became believers in Yeshua. So the home also provides a secure and special place for worship. The residents, they start the morning at 7:30 with a word of prayer, reading and Bible study. They do it each day, except of Shabbat, because on Shabbat they go to the congregations around, and they gather for different occasions. Families are invited, visitors are coming, and we have volunteers coming, sitting with the people, reading to them, talking to them, singing for them. So, if you're in Israel one time, you're welcome. Soon I will give out also the address and some more information where you can find us also on the web. You're more than welcome to come and visit and see it with your own eyes and to feel the spirit that is in the home. It's worth doing that and taking a couple of minutes and to come and greet those people that live there in their later days of the life that they have been given by God. We have a lady that is 93. She used to be a piano teacher. Every morning, very continuously, she comes after breakfast, she goes to the piano, plays 20 minutes, 30 minutes for everyone. Hymns, songs that witness from her faith. And her husband is very proud of that, of course. And they live at the home, both together. We have an elderly lady. She is almost 90, still plays the violin together with another dear brother there that lives and plays the violin. They play together. Some play the flute together. I mean, it's a community that supports, and among themselves, they encourage each other. When someone is sick, you will see always other residents coming in and knocking on the door and do you need something? Can we sit with you, read for you, sing for you? It is a family. It's not individuals, but the more you look at those people, you see how they become a family. And if I look at those that work there, I start noticing that, and asking those that work there, you see how much they love the people and their fellow believers in that old age. They come to serve those people, elderly people, that used to serve the community when they were young. And now the next generation can take over and serve those that have served so many years and be faithful to Yeshua. The workers, they come from all kind of directions. All of them are believers. I've seen one Muslim among them who is a physiotherapist, a very nice fellow. As much as I see and speak to him, he really enjoys working there, and he loves to come to work. He always keeps telling, well, here is a different atmosphere, and I'm accepted here just as I am, and it's very special for me. One time, I must mention this. One time I walked by and I saw one of the garbage collectors, and I saw him for the first time collecting the garbage because the previous garbage collector went in pension. Well, although those people, they go and retire from their daily job. And he asks me, like, what is that building? You know who lives there? And I tell him, yes, that's an old people's home. And he said, yeah, but it's different. I still didn't say a word. And that guy tells me, well, I'm working here just new in this area, but that building is different. I said, what is so different? The concrete looks exactly like the same with the neighbors. And he continuously said, no, it is different. And I asked him again, I made a little joke with him. I said, well, the garbage here stinks exactly the same like the neighbors, I guess. And he starts laughing. He said, yes, that's so. But I feel and sense coming closer to this building, it is different. There is different atmosphere or spirit. I don't know how to describe it. Then we say goodbye and, he keeps going. And I know that one day he will go in and ask questions. That happens to so many people entering the home, just as I mentioned before. The home has a license for 48 people. Right now, I said there's 30. Next month, I heard this will be 31. There's one coming to it. But they don't want to fill up the home to the maximum of residents. And there's a good reason for it. First of all, the manager says, well, then it's like crowded and it's not a family anymore. But if needed, we will do it. But right now, we are waiting for a building permit for a nursing ward. And the home Ebenezer is a home for people that can actually do everything by themselves. They are allowed to have 10% of residents as nursing care. That means if they're 30, they're allowed to be 3 in nursing care. And every individual has to be asked a permission for them by the Ministry of Health and Welfare, and it's a struggle back and forward. The family has to ask it, the social worker has to ask it, the management has to ask it. It's a hassle. And it is actually not paid by the government. So there was a decision made that the home will undergo a major renovation. First of all, because requirement by law to adopt all the new standards of a nursing home, and you cannot skip that. Otherwise, they close the home. So most of the homes in Israel are working on those plans. It was first until the end of 2017 that it has to be done. And then it was 2018. And now we can just look how this works out. And the municipality says, okay, no problem. You will get your license, but it will be linked to the plans. If you have plans and you're going to ask for a building permit, then you will have a continuation in your license. So that's what the home did. And right now the status is waiting for the municipality to reach out that building permit. But including in that building permit is the building of a nursing ward. A nursing ward is necessary to keep the people at the home, even if they get to a stage of being disabled from their daily tasks and turning into nursing cases. Those people that are living there, they look forward to end their life at the home. It may sound not so nice in saying, yes, we wait until we die. No, they always say we wait until we go home. We have hope. We are not going to die and like the world. We have hope, living hope in Yeshua, and we're going to be with the Father in heaven. This is their living hope. This is their future. But sending those people out to other facilities and not having them in the community would be very hard on them. We had one case actually that we spoke of at the home, and they told me that that lady actually died because she was taken out of the home to a special nursing facility. She broke her hip, she had to be nursed, and she didn't make it. Now, looking at plans of the nursing ward, I see 14 beds. There are going to be 14 beds that the facility will have in addition to the place that they already have. So they can host a lot more people in care. And that it will be covered by the government. The government will cover all expenses for each and individual one when they occupy a bed. Now, that's a great help for the yearly budget. You can imagine having 10 or 14 beds occupied, paid by the government and not by people who cannot afford it. That's a great help. That will reduce even the need of yearly donations. The whole project is a major thing because people will stay there, continue living, so they will be moved from one side of the building to the other side of the building, during the coming years when this project will go on, including the nursing ward. It is required to build a bomb shelter, of course. Don't forget, we're speaking about Israel. Hopefully it will never be used, but it's always good to have one, and required by the authorities. And by the way, not only for wartime. Haifa lays in an earthquake zone, and more awareness is about these earthquakes that are coming. Don't forget that even scriptures speak about it. In the Bible it said that in Jerusalem will be an earthquake where 7,000 people will perish. In future, it's prophetic. And the building of that nursing ward will require the building itself to be reinforced against earthquakes. And then on top of it can be built another floor. Those of you who listen and know a little bit of statics, you know it's not an easy task, but it can be done. It's done in Israel in many places. And you gain more space, you gain more rooms for other people to live in. The building will have a new shape. It will be adapted to the area style, which is covered with stone, like the Jerusalem stone, required by the Office of Preservation at the municipality. They say, well, your building has to adopt the view or how it looks in the German colony. So that's one part. I suggest that you go on our website. Our website will show you the structure, how it will look like. I will give you the address. It's just write down ebenezerhome.co.il. I say, I'll just spell it. It's ebenezer.co.il.
Miriam Hout now sings Light of the World from her album Shadows, available at drybonesrestorationcompany.com.
Hanukkah is the festival of lights, remembering a miracle of war. One more small candle is lit each night until our menorah is full. Take the shamash, it is the servant lighting the candles, waiting there. Glimmers of fire light up our faces, and now the miracle we share. Light up the world, oh little candles, you are holy. Tell the world you shine for him. Light up the world, oh little candles, you are holy. Tell the world you shine for him. You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hid. If you would be great in the kingdom, you must be the servant of all. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. In him was life, the light of men. His light shines in the dark. Light of the world, it is Messiah. He is the servant, lighting us with holy fire. Our Ha'olam, Zeh HaMashiach, Hu HaShamash, Yah
Hello and welcome to the midrash portion of today's Reunion Roadmap, a B'nai Yosef of North America production. This is Barry Phillips from Gloucester, Virginia, and with me today is fellow elder David Jones from Brandon, Florida. David, I trust that you are well.
Yeah, shalom, brother. Doing great. Looking forward to the subject we're going to get into today.
Yeah, we are in the holiday season, and no, we're not about to sing Jingle Bells. We are focused on Hanukkah. And within the Hebraic Roots community, there are many of us who embrace the celebration of dedication. Most of us are aware, I would think, of the book of John, Yochanan chapter 10, verse 22, that references the visit of Yeshua to the temple area in the time, it says, of Hanukkah. So Yeshua seemed to be aware of the celebration, and in my estimation, to some degree at least, embracing it as a cultural holiday, certainly. But David, I believe it has some significance and some purpose in this regard. I want to just kind of throw an idea out to you here. Within the scope of the Torah, there is quite a few commands pertaining to our being Israel, and it is required of us to be separate from other cultures. Yah said, do not worship me the way these other nations worship their Elohim. It talks about the need of the Hebrew people to remain pure in their marital lines, so that they are not intermarrying with other nations. That if a ger, a stranger, a foreigner, comes and travels with them, that they are to become as the Hebrews, that there's one Torah for all of them. But it's not that the Hebrews should adopt the culture of the other nations. So there is a purity and to be enjoined here and to be embraced, a sense of separation from the rest of the nations and their cultures. It's not enough, however, in my estimation, David, and maybe you can elaborate on this, that we be separate from, that we cease embracing the cultural things of other nations and cling to those of the Torah, but that we be dedicated to. So to be separate from is step one, but lest we create a vacuum, we need to become dedicated to. Is that second step perhaps missing in some of our walk? Is there a means by which we should maybe become more focused on that second step of being dedicated to something, maybe as Hanukkah would teach us?
That really is kind of a loaded question, but it's a really good one, because if we just remove ourselves from everything, what are we giving ourselves toward? I always think back to when they came out of Mitzrayim, and if Yahweh would have brought them across the sea and then said, "Okay, guys, the promised land is that way. I'll catch up with you at some point later in the future," that wasn't good enough. He delivered them from Egypt, but now he has to bring them to himself, which is why he brought them to the mountain to teach them his ways and instruct them. And so I think today we're so big on the things that we've been taught and the things that we've learned growing up in our lives that we now look at saying, well, that was off kilter, and so now we need to get back on track. But we're still stuck in that mode of separating ourselves from everything and everyone else because, well, I don't want to do that and I don't want to do that, that we apply that same filter, if you will, to our brothers and sisters, and we start removing ourselves from each other as well. And I agree. Once we've been removed from what the Father is calling us out of, we have to be gathered together to each other and Him. Of course, we're gathered to Him. But yet, when we all stand before the Father, we're not standing before Him just us and Him. Scripture says it's like a sea of people. So guess what? We have to get used to each other in here. We can't remove ourselves from each other because we're going to be together. We have to learn to work together and be dedicated to the Father in the midst of that, which means we might not all look or do or say or act or dress exactly the same way. No.
So I can't say David is only dedicated to the Father when he's exactly like me, because I'm so dedicated to the Father.
And that tends to be our mindset, though, isn't it? Because the Father's revealing these truths to me, so this is truth. But yet, we're not seeing that truth has a lot of different sides to it. A lot of things are true, but there's only one truth, and the truth is His Word. And I think the minute we start to say that we understand every facet of His truth, I think it's just pride and arrogance.
I'm reminded of Malachi 3. And the message has been in the first 2 chapters to a inconsistent, unfocused, maybe you could even say lackadaisical priesthood who has grown tired of the tediousness of the altar. And Yah has said, these animals that you're trying to present to me that are lame, sick, inferior, offer them to your governor and see if he wants them. Why, if he doesn't want them, why do you think I want them? And at one point, he seems to be saying, I wish someone would put the fire out, turn the lights off, close the doors, and y'all just go home. He upbraids the Levitical priesthood soundly for their attitude of a perceived weariness about doing what is right and being focused and dedicated and energetic towards something. So in chapter 3, he says, I'm sending my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And then the master you're seeking comes to his Hekel, his temple, even the messenger of the covenant in whom you delight. See, he is coming. But verse 2 says, and who is able to bear the day of his coming, and who is able to stand when he appears? The messenger was Yochanan the Immerser, John the Baptist. And then the messenger of the covenant in whom they delighted is the Mashiach, Yeshua. When Yeshua came and he began to cry out, you have made my father's house a den of thieves. It should be a house of prayer. They got upset. They had come to accept their systems, their money-making systems. And Yeshua was pointing out, this is unacceptable. You're dedicated to the wrong thing. Is there a danger? I'll ask a 2-part question here for you, David. Number 1, is there a danger that if we do not dedicate ourselves toward the right thing, that we'll become dedicated to the wrong thing and it be justified in our eyes? And secondly, when the Father upbraids and corrects us, is our justification of what we've been doing, even we're going to argue with Him and say, but this is acceptable. If He says it's unacceptable, who are we to say, no, we're right, you're wrong, it is acceptable?
Wow.
You're welcome.
When we look at what the Father's calling us to do, we understand there is a certain degree of removing ourselves from the ways of the world and the culture and the context of this world in order to be what He's calling us to be. That's necessary, that's needed, that's a requirement. Being holy is set apart, it is being separate. But at the same time, we do still have to live in this world. And so, let's face it, we need jobs. We need a place to stay, a place to live. We need food on the table. And if we have a family, we have to support them. And so a lot of these things are requirements that actually the Torah tells us to do, to care for our household. So when we try to divide and pull ourselves completely out, we can actually put ourselves in a situation of rebellion if we're not keeping a proper focus. I'm thinking of things like Mordechai.
So what is that proper focus?
Well, I'm thinking of things like Mordechai, where he worked in a pagan land, but yet he honored Yahweh in the midst of it. Uh-huh. And he honored his earthly king, to the degree that he needed to. So here's the focus. Here we are, but when we take our eyes off the Father, because if we take our eyes off of him and just focus solely on what we're reading, we're missing the point. But when we're reading, if we're searching for him, then that gives the room for correction to come when it's needed. And we do tend to justify our actions because, well, this was wrong, I was in error, this is the right thing to do, so this is what I'm doing. And then in our desire to get it right, we're digging our heels in, and possibly even to the point when Yahweh's trying to correct us and move us to a different place. We don't want to do that. 42 encampments in the wilderness, Barry. What if it was time to move and we're like, no, God said we're supposed to be right here. You missed it.
Especially at the oasis at Elam, man. This is his divine will. I'm thinking of several of the medieval era movies that I have seen portrayed where a king or a military leader is calling for a crusade or for a war campaign, and they begin to shout, and God wills it. God wills it. And, there is this self-justification of their conquest mindset because they deem that God wills it. This is the will of God. Well, I dare say that a crusade that would involve the slaughter of our Jewish brothers is not the will of our Creator. But it was a self-righteous endeavor based on their own assumptions. I'm seeing, David, that if we fail in our attempts to be separate, if we fail to become dedicated to, that we create a vacuum. And according to the principle that Yeshua said, if we cast something out and we don't replace it with that which is righteous, then the end result is going to be worse, because that which was cast out will come back and find the house swept and bring back others that are worse than himself. And it's going to be a greater calamity than at the first. It's not enough to clean the house, but we need to fill the house then with what is righteous. I see that Hanukkah is about dedicating the house, giving purpose to the house, recognizing again the originator's original intent and design, and striving to get back to that. You said something other about the focus is not so much on the menorah, but on another part of the temple before we got started today. Elaborate on that just for a moment before we close.
Well, Hanukkah is the word for dedication. And so where dedication appears in the original story, it's talking about dedicating the altar, dedicating the house, dedicating the altar. So if our focus is on the dedication of the altar, makes me think of Romans 12, 1 and 2, right? We're living sacrifice. Lay our lives down for the sake of the Father.
Yes.
And, but, the problem with living sacrifices is we keep trying to get off the altar because it hurts. It's hot, That's why we first must die before we get on the altar. Like Shaul, I die daily. So that means the things that we desire, we have to stop and examine and take a look at and make sure that we are operating in the will of the Father. And in the areas where they're not, that needs to die.
Ooh.
And then we seek out his purpose. And that's where we're filled every day with his presence. Is when we empty ourselves before him. And if we start the day like that, then we will be looking for opportunities to draw nearer to him, and then we'll be sensitive when he's telling us to draw to each other.
Well, that's an awesome way to close out, unfortunately, these few moments that we have. Thank you, David, for being with me today. If you have questions and comments, please reach out to us at Reunion Roadmap at B'naiYosefNA.com. Shalom, David.
Greg Brown now sings Miracle of Hanukkah. You can contact Greg at Gregory Brown Ministries on Facebook or send him an email at gregory.brown7@outlook.com. And now, Miracle of Hanukkah.
During this season, you will find our family celebrating the reason of how it came to be. As we gather together, 8 days, 8 nights, the Maccabees did endeavor, successful in the fight, as they cleaned out the temple. Only one cruse of oil was reclaimed. They rekindled the menorah as they all gathered around and prayed. Then they saw a miracle from Yah, as the oil should have burnt just one day. But the light burned for all 8 days until the new oil could be made. As we all come before Him to rededicate our lives, we all sweep out our temples, remove the leaven from inside, proclaiming His blessings. We offer up our praise. In remembrance we light Hanukkahs, one candle for each day. As they clean out the temple, only one cruse of oil was reclaimed. They rekindled the menorah as they all gathered around and prayed. Then they saw a miracle from Yah, as the oil should have burnt just one day. But the light burned for all 8 days until new oil could be made. Then they saw a miracle from Yah, as the oil should have burnt just one day. But the light burned for all 8 days until new oil could be made. And the hand of Yah was upon them all, for He delivered them on that day.
Hello, this is Sophania Pappas, Communications Director for B'nai Yosef North America, and with me is Al McCarn, our Executive Director. And you just got done hearing Miracle of Hanukkah by Gregory Brown, and we've heard other things about miracles of Hanukkah in regard to what we just heard on the midrash.
Right. Now, Greg is singing about the miracle of the lights, and that may be the first thing that people learn about Hanukkah. It's certainly the most fascinating, compelling thing that the Jews of the day had only 1 day's worth of consecrated oil to light the menorah once the Maccabees had retaken the temple in the year 165 BCE. I mean, it's a real historical event. The miracle itself, which says that this 1 day supply of oil burned for 8 days until new supply could be consecrated and prepared. You know, I don't know that we have any definitive statement one way or the other whether it actually happened.
Right.
But let me ask you, Stefania, even if that miracle of these lights that burned for 8 days when they should have burned only for one, even if that did not happen, would Hanukkah still hold its significance?
Oh, yes. The most incredible miracle of all was this crew of Maccabees who the odds were totally stacked against them. And through a miracle of their faith, they stood for what they believed in and were able to push back the influence of Hellenism within Israel proper, but they were able to actually reclaim back their heritage. And where would we be today if that didn't happen, that miracle didn't happen?
Exactly. And that, I think, is the larger miracle.
Yes.
And as I've come to learn more and appreciate the perspective of our Jewish brethren on this and on life in general, what I see is just what you said. A handful of dedicated people of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob who stood up and said, I know it's impossible. I know the odds are totally against us. The Greeks have the numbers, they have the technology, they have the training. What do we have that we can fight against? They were doing the very same thing that this young shepherd boy named David did when he said, who is this Philistine? I don't care how tall he is. I don't care how well armed he is. And I don't care how many soldiers he has at his back. He has defied the God of Israel and the armies of Israel.
Yes.
He cannot stand. So David went out all by himself with 5 stones in his sling, and God responded to David's faith. You know, that's what the Maccabees did, and that's what God did for them.
Amen.
And we have heard this time and time when God's people, even against the odds, just stand up and do the little that they can.
Yes.
The Creator responds. What's the story of the loaves and the fish in the Gospels when Yeshua feeds 5,000 people and later 4,000 people with just a little bit of food? Someone was dedicated. Someone believed. Someone said, I don't have much, but it might make a difference. And if God is in it, it'll make all the difference.
Amen.
Now, how does that stack up, Sophania, with what Barry and David were bringing us in their midrash?
They were really talking about how we are to dedicate ourselves. Really, it got down to when they started discussing this whole idea of Hanukkah and this theme. And the miracle is, are we going to let that miracle happen in us, where we're going to have that same fire that the Maccabees had, where we're actually going to say, maybe I'm letting darkness overcome me, and maybe I need to let his light shine through me even more because of what's overtaking me here. And I need to dedicate myself to his cause and his vision for my life.
Exactly. And the real question is, are you going to take God seriously or not?
Yes.
And you know, as I was listening to what they were sharing with us, it convicted me. And I think this is something we need to be doing on a recurring basis, maybe even a daily basis. Just asking again, are we truly dedicated to the God who made us and who redeemed us? Because if so, then the miracles begin to flow.
Amen to that.
And that brings us to the end of another hour. with Reunion Roadmap. We will be back again next week. This is Al McCarn on behalf of Zephaniah Pappas and our elders Barry Phillips and David Jones. Thank you for listening, and Chag Sameach.
Thank you for joining us on Reunion Roadmap, a production of B'nai Yosef North America. Please come back next week for another visit with the people of the emerging house of Joseph here in North America.